This weekend saw the first official competitive events taking place in the OP12 plus ban list format in the One Piece card game. And to say that the results across the world were pretty wild is an understatement to say the least. So in this video, we are going to go over all of the results of the 3 offline events that happened this weekend and try and make sense of where on earth this format is going to be heading over the next month or so. My name's Ben Fitzpatrick, I'm a TCG caster. That means I just love talking about them. So let's do that right now. But before we go ahead and get into today's video, if you do enjoy it, please do consider dropping a like rating on it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like I know nearly 90% of the people who watch my videos have not done. If you're coming back on the regular and you're enjoying the content, you might as well subscribe. It is completely free to do so, and it helps me out a ton. While you're down there as well, drop a comment down below with the deck that has surprised you the most with its performance in this first weekend of OP12. Also, check out my link tree in the description of this video where you can find me on other social platforms. Yes, this weekend, first OP12 official competitive action across the world. I had the honor and privilege to be a part of it, casting the Bologna offline regional championships here in the European region with my good friend Wassy, and it was an incredible event. That's where we're going to start off with here, because this top 32 was wild. Your usual suspects, your expected suspects doing well and representing highly in top 32. Your green Zoros, your Bonnies, you had a couple blue-purple Luffys there. I said in my ban list video that deck wasn't dead. Rayleigh being the equal highest, most represented deck going into top 32 was definitely a big surprise for me. I was expecting to see Rayleigh, but I wasn't expecting to see 5 Rayleighs going into top 32. That was really, really interesting. Couple of Shanks sneaking in as well. I know there's been a big belief community that Shanks is well and truly back in this format. I mentioned it as one of the decks to watch in my video last week. If you missed that in the iCard, go and have a look at that one. 2 Kuzans making it through as well. I'm a big interester of Kuzan in OP12. It seems like a really, really interesting and consistent deck. Green-purple Luffy, red-green Smoker making it through, some Teach players, Lucci being the removal deck of choice as opposed to Sakazuki, because that's nowhere to be found in Bologna this weekend. Blue-yellow Nami making it through. I know a lot of people that are running this deck at the moment are holding off for the Ace and Newgate starter deck to come out and give this deck some really, really big support. And then some of the stories of the weekend, Calgara and Vegapunk, with both of these decks making it to at least the top 8 stage, and Vegapunk making it all the way to the final up against Enrico Maria Rustico's Silver's Rayleigh deck. It was so, so cool to hear and watch every single round that Marco's Vegapunk deck had slowly but surely made it through and made it past into the next stage of the single elimination bracket. Great game against Angelo on Marshall D. Teach. Really close best of 3 between Marco and Silver's Rayleigh, Enrico Maria and Silver's Rayleigh. But ultimately, it was the former world's representative making it through and being Bologna Regional Champion on home national soil for Enrico Maria as well. Big congratulations to him and the entire Italian community. The other 2 decks as well, I mean, we've obviously mentioned Teach very, very briefly. Bonnie, very, very expected to make its way in, but was a different take on Jewelry Bonnie. It was a little bit of a Fishman package that was being run in this deck with Vanderdecker number 9s, the promo Jinbei, and the vanilla, I think it was Kawamatsu. It was just a vanilla 6-cost 8k, I think, that's a counter that's in there. Predominantly, I'd imagine, to be trashed for the Vanderdecker the 9th effect. But really, really interesting deck and really interesting take on a very well-established deck. I've seen the Fishman build kind of like running around a little bit here and there. I know that there is someone on YouTube. Oh, the name of the channel escapes me. If I can find it, I'll put a link to it. I'll edit on the screen. But I know that there is someone that has been posting POV gameplays of a Bonnie deck with a Fishman package, and I've watched a couple of the videos, and I've looked at it and I've gone, I really don't like this. There's so many other cards that fit so much better inherently into the Jewelry Bonnie package. Whether that continues to ring true, we'll have to wait and see. We've still got an extra month or so of this OP12 format until PRB2 releases in October. That's going to change things up really, really nicely. But Jewelry Bonnie with Fishmen is potentially the one thing that deck needed, if it needed anything else. I am surprised. I think the Marshall D Teach made it as far as it did. I think it might have been slightly helped by the matchup lottery that it's won here, beating Arm and Haji Gassemi on Jewelry Bonnie. This is the wrong score way around. It was Teach that went... no, it was Bonnie that went through here. Where am I looking at the other Teach? Here it is. So it's beating Mateo on Blue Yellow Nami, which was a pretty nice matchup for Teach. Just turn off their leader effect when your 10 cost comes down. Nice and easy. Then going against two Bonnies in a row, I believe, or Bonnie and Lucci. Easy wins there for Teach. Bonnie relies quite heavily on plays. Lucci relies quite heavily on plays. And then falling to Vegapunk, which doesn't live and die by the on-play mechanic. So winning the matchup lottery, I think there was Angelo for quite a lot of the top 32. But you can't take anything away from the player. It still takes a lot of work to get through 2 or 3 extra rounds and best of 3 as well to get yourself into an offline regional top 4. So massive, massive credit to Angelo. I'm just not 100% sure how much that this is going to be a repeated factor going into the remainder of OP12. We will wait and see, however. Let's cross on over to the other side of the world and go to Auckland, the Oceania Auckland offline regional, which was a very, very different meta. Still, Zoro dominating a large majority of the top cut. This was the top 16. But no Silvers Rayleighs to be found anywhere. Bonnie was the next highest represented deck, tied with EBO2 Luffy and Kuzan at 2s. Yamato, which ended up being the runner-up of Auckland Regionals as well. Oceania, I mentioned in casting during the weekend in Bologna. Oceania tends to have a real affinity for Yamato decks. I tend to see quite a few of them doing quite well over there. So it doesn't surprise me region-wise that Yamato has done very, very well. But certainly format-wise, it has surprised me because no one had eyes on Yamato, I don't think, going into OP12. So really, really well played to Joshua Alcock. Did end up losing out in the final against Dylan Mao on Jewelry Bonnie. Then you had Sanji getting into the top 16. Really, really well done there. Han Tao Chang getting top 16 with blue-purple Sanji. Then you have Lucci, 1 blue-purple Luffy, a Shanks, and a blue-yellow Nami. So Oceania, for the most part, being a little bit more standard, being a little bit more what we expected OP12 formats to look like. The exceptions here are probably Nami, Sanji, and Yamato are the 3 kind of exceptions here. The other decks around the format and around the top 16 cut, you could look at those and say, yeah, I could see those bumping themselves into a top cut here and there in the OP12 format. So this may be what we're expecting to see a little bit more of going forwards. No Silvers Rayleigh in this top cut is very, very intriguing. Makes me wonder and think if there was a little bit more Sakazuki in this format, and both of them have just kind of like cancelled each other out to get into and away from the top 16. So we'll have to see what the uptick is going to be like in response to all of the results that have come across these events this weekend. Especially, obviously I'll be a little bit biased, but especially Europe with Silver's Rayleigh. Are there now going to be more Rayleigh players running around? And to counter that, are there going to be more Sakazuki players that are going to be trying to take advantage of all of those low-cost characters that Silver's Rayleigh spits out every single turn? Last one we're going to talk about in this video is going to be the Chilean regionals over in the LATAM region. Yes, I'm aware that there were some online events that happened across the weekend as well in both Chile and in North America, I believe, as well. I think both of them were won by Zorro, so that's why I'm not massively covering them. But we'll mention them here if they were won by Zorro. I know North America certainly was won by Zorro. So that deck certainly proving that it can win in major events and not just be a huge represented deck and just not have the results similar to Blue-Purple Luffy in the OP11 format. We'll have to wait and see how things continue on. But for the Chilean regionals, you see the top cut breakdown here. Green-Purple Luffy being the most represented in top cut. Then you had Enel, one I also said to watch out for, Sakazuki, Zorro, Silver's Rayleigh, Shanks, and Bonnie. And the winning deck of the Chilean regionals was Enel. And this is an Enel build that has really, really surprised me. Because I mentioned in my video about decks to look out for in the OP12 format, when we talked about Enel, I mentioned and talked primarily about the Lucci-like Enel that a lot of people had started building into, being a little bit removal focused and removal heavy with things like Hino Bird Zap, Ultra Combat Murmuring, those kinds of things. This build, however, is basically just traditional Enel. It's just yellow good stuff that basically we've got here. 3 Shirahoshi, 4 Zeus's for KO potential and to help you if you're getting starved in the early to mid game, and a 2k counter. Brule as a blocker that can be played off trigger. Capone's makes sense. Hawkins makes sense. Frankie's primarily is a 2k. Kikunojo as a triggerable character that can be played on and one that your opponent will typically sort of stay away from. 3 Nami, we saw how powerful that was for the Vegapunk deck with Marco in Bologna this weekend. 1 copy of Egghead Luffy is a little bit weird. I'm not sure why it's just the 1 copy of this character and not say maybe like a 2-2 split between Nami and Luffy or something like that, or maybe cutting entirely the Nico Robin. This is a really interesting inclusion as just a one-of in this deck. On play, if your opponent has 3 or more life cards, they have to trash one from the top of the life area. Card I'm a fan of. It's really, really fun to play. Not so much to play against, but really, really good card. This Sabo blocker from OP12 is one of the few new pieces that this deck has included. Very, very useful. We saw it in Bologna Regionals in the Black Yellow Luffy deck, which was round 2's feature match, if I remember correctly. I'll pop a link in the description for the Twitch channel where you can see the archived weekend's footage from the Bologna offline regionals, and feel free to comment as well with links to the archives of the Chilean regionals and Auckland regionals as well, if there were streams of them. I believe that Eggman, where this information has been taken from with the Top Cut breakdown of Chile, streamed the Treasure Cup, I believe. So I'll double check that, and if so, I'll pop their link in the description as well. But this Sabo card, really, really nice. Kuma, incredible card, bustedly good from OP12 as the secret rare, double healing potential, and getting that +2 cost, which comes into play against Electrical Luna, like we saw in Bologna's feature match area over the weekend. 1/7 cost Rush Enel is really interesting. I still really like this card. I think it's a really cool card. It's a really flavorful card. You can trash 1 card from the top of your life area to keep it around unless there's a Luffy on the board. In that case, the effect gets negated. Really, really nice like that. 3 copies of 8-cost Kid here, and then 4 copies of the 10-cost Rush Enel. So what you're seeing in this build is your only ways to heal are 10-cost Enel and 6-cost Kuma. There's no Ace, there's no Yamato, there's no 8-cost Katakuri even to stack a card from our own character area into life either. Which is a really, really interesting take on Enel. For me, I'm not sure how comfortable I would be running this deck and running this build and this version. For me, I think I'd take out the Luffy. I like the Robin, but I think I'd take it out. And again, the same with the 7-cost Enel. And put Rush Aces into the deck. Because I want to make sure that I'm not just relying on seeing 10-cost Ace every game, or 10-cost Enel every game to get my constant heal flow going for the leader effect. That puts me a little on edge, but a really interesting take and a really different version of Enel that we've seen, even with quite a lot of the core pieces sticking around from previous iterations. You've got Shirahoshi, Beige, Kikunojo, Brule, 10-cost Enel, obviously from EVO2 onwards. You're the one who should disappear to get you that potential double heal if you can hit it off of the trigger before the leader effect. Blaze Slice as a extra counter event of choice, plus 1000 power during the turn to a leader or character. Then if your opponent has 2 or less life, rest a 4-cost or less. And then just the 1 copy of the Arc Maxim to be a 2-cost or less KO outlet. We've been seeing a lot more of the Arc Maxim in, like I said, the sort of more Enel or Lucci versions of Enel through the early days of OP12 testing. Here it's being kept as a one-of, which is interesting. So maybe that's sort of why the 7-cost Enel, another reason why that is maybe a one-of, to rest that down with the Arc Maxim and keep your leader attack still around. Potentially, it's a little bit of a weird line to go for, but it certainly worked out for them, so I cannot blame or question too much about how well this player has done, because ultimately they are an offline regional champion with this deck. So a really interesting spread of decks that have been represented in the early OP12 format. Obviously, as expected, you've got your top decks that have been played in terms of representation of Zoro, Bonnie, Rayleigh, Green-Purple Luffy sneaking in here and there as well. But apart from those sort of 3 or 4, there's room here. There's room for work. There's room for a little bit of ingenuity as well. Red-Green Smoker, we didn't get to see that really much during Bologna. I think we saw it during day 1 in the feature match, but we didn't watch it on day 2. Really, really interested to see what that build ended up looking like and how much further that's going to go pre-PRBO2, because post-PRBO2, this deck gets even better. It gets very, very good with the new 6-cost lore that's coming out in that set. But where does the OP12 format go from here? Honestly, I'm not sure. I think we'll see a lot of the same in terms of the Zoro, the Bonnie, the Rayleigh and stuff like that. Are we going to see an uptick in Sakazuki? Potentially. I've seen some really, really interesting and weird Sakazuki builds coming out of the first OP12 formats. One of them being piloted by Havoye Headset, one of the first ever Worlds qualifiers and runners-up of the World Championship in the One Piece card game, where he was playing a Lucci-less Sakazuki. Yeah, no 4-cost Rob Lucci was being played in the deck. Really, really different take on it, but still went well, went 8-2. I think, in day 1, missing out on Top Cut because he lost in round 1 for the most part. That was the main reason, kind of just completely skewed his tiebreakers out of the window. But are we going to see more Sakazuki coming into combat Rayleigh if that sees an uptick? Probably, more than likely. Lucci is obviously still there as well, lurking. Mirko Zanelli piloting Lucci this weekend in Bologna. Very, very well-known player, very, very well-accomplished player. So we'll see if that continues on. I want to see what happens to Kuzan, because I think this deck is really, really good, but doesn't quite put up the results across the events this weekend. I mean, here in Oceania, it certainly did. Henry Lai getting top 4 with their Kuzan list, so I'll be interested to see what they're playing in Kuzan to maybe be different from what we're seeing in Europe at the moment. But early days of a brand new format is always really, really exciting. And of course, we've still got that promo replacement Nami leader waiting to be distributed as well. We still don't have any information right now. My guess is that it might be distributed during a release window event of either PRBO2 or OP13. That's going to be my guess at when we're going to get it. As soon as we have any more information, though, we will be updating it more than likely over on TikTok and make it a short form content video. So be sure to follow on over there if you haven't already. But that's going to do it for this video. So now it's over to you. Let me know down in the comments section below what you're taking away from these early results in the OP12 format. And is it going to change the decks that you are planning on running or are already building for the remainder of this format? If you have enjoyed this video as well, while you're down there, be sure to drop a like rating on the video. Subscribe to the channel as well for more One Piece card game and other TCG related content. That's going to do it for this video then. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you soon. Goodbye for now.